guys, my name's Emily and this is my channel, The Red-Headed Ravenclaw. Today I'm going to be finally doing my November wrap-up, and the reason it's been so long since I made a video is because I've been really stressed about finals and I'm moving and I was like worried about getting a job. But today I finally heard back from the library that I applied to and I got the job that I applied for and interviewed for, and it's such a blessing. I'm so excited about this transition in my life and moving to a new city, and I will maybe talk about that more later once I get settled into my new job and stuff like that. But I'm moving from an academic library setting to a public library setting, so I'm really excited, and I'm just really glad to be moving on up in the world. But without further ado, I'm going to talk about the 10 books, that's 5, the 10 books that I read for November, and 5 of them were for school, for my multicultural literature course, or maybe for another class as well, probably just that class. And then 5 of them were just for whatever reading. The first book that I read is George by Gino, and this is a book about a girl who was assigned male at birth, and she wants to play Charlotte in their school's production of Charlotte's Web. But because she presents as male, the students and the teachers don't know yet that she's female and that she wants to express herself in that way, and so the teacher doesn't allow her to play Charlotte. And so it's all about Melissa is the girl's name. It's about her learning to be okay with her identity and trying to tell other people, confide in other people about her feelings, and kind of the backlash of that, and also the love and acceptance she eventually feels from friends and family. And it was really good. It's a middle grade book. I think Melissa is like, I want to say 9, but I'm not sure if that's right. The book has a lot of misgendering, and that especially because Melissa doesn't tell a lot of people about her identity, and so there's not, I think it's unintentional transphobia, but as different characters learn about how Melissa identifies, it kind of goes away a little bit, and they learn to accept Melissa's identity, and even if it is like slowly, it does challenge the transphobia and the different reactions to Melissa being trans, and I think it does a really good job of it, especially for a middle grade audience. And so I would highly recommend this to any child who is around this age range and is learning about people's identities and their gender and sexuality and things like that. So anyways, I enjoyed that. I read it for my inclusive unit in my multicultural literature class, and I think I ended up giving it 4 stars. The next book that I read for class is called In the Footsteps of Crazy Horse by Joseph Marshall III. This book is about Jimmy, who is Lakota, but he's constantly bullied for appearing too white and having a white name, and the other Lakota boys don't feel like he's Native American enough. And so after school gets out for the summer, Jimmy and his grandfather take a road trip where they go to important spots that played roles in Crazy Horse's life. And Crazy Horse was a Lakota Indian who also didn't appear to be very Native American, and it didn't really cause him problems per se, but it gives Jimmy empowerment and helps him become more comfortable with who he is and feel like encouraged by his Lakota heritage. And I didn't give this one a rating. I didn't super love it, especially because of the writing style. It was very, like, because it was a road trip, there were a lot of directional, there was a lot of directional exposition. Like, they turned left at this point, and then they went 35 miles this way, and then they turned right at this building, and it was a lot of that, and so I was just kind of annoyed with the repetitiveness of that. But I think the story is good and empowering, and especially paints Native Americans in a positive light, especially including them in a contemporary setting. The next book that I read for class, but also I've been wanting to read it for a while anyways, and that is Darius the Great is Not Okay by Adib Khorram. And this book is about Darius, who is Persian American, and he is bullied at school because he is overweight, and because he's Persian American, a student even calls him a terrorist at one point. And Darius is kind of a nerd. He loves Star Trek, and he is especially interested in tea, and that's a factor of his culture, but he works in a tea store and he is very knowledgeable about different kinds of teas. When Darius and his immediate family learn that his grandfather, who lives in Iran, is dying of a brain tumor, they decide that they're going to go visit Iran, and Darius and his younger sister have never been to Iran before. So the book tells of Darius's experiences learning about his culture in Iran and learning to be comfortable with being Persian American, and he also suffers from depression and anxiety, and he is learning how to work around that, like make everyday life okay. But then the major theme of the book, like the title says, is that it is okay not to be okay sometimes. And it's a really great story of male expression of emotions. Darius makes a friend named Schwab in Iran, and they are able to express their emotions differently in Iran. And Darius is also not afraid of being emotional, of crying, of expressing how he's feeling, and I really appreciated that look into teenage boys, and it was a really beautiful story. I loved learning about Iran. We don't often see Iran painted in a positive light, and so it was really nice to see the parts of Iran that are not ravaged by war. And I gave this book 5 stars. I really, really enjoyed it, and I am very, very excited for the sequel. The next book that I listened to is A Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin, and this book is about Ged, and Ged has very strong magical powers from a young age, and he goes to school, it's kind of a school, and learns how to harness his powers and use them and learn different things about his magic. And one day he unleashes this really dark entity, and it causes a lot of problems, and Ged has to live with knowing that he unleashed it, and kind of has to work to gain control over it or to defeat it. And this book is older, and I enjoyed it kind of, but it didn't really stick with me. I can't remember a lot of the details of it, but I will say that it is one of the best audiobooks I've ever listened to, in terms of the narrator doing a really great job of expressing really intense situations and making everything sound very whimsical. There's dragons in this book, there's dark magic, there's all kinds of really interesting stuff, and I'm not super into high fantasy, and I think I would classify this as that, but I am excited to continue on with this series, and I will probably continue listening to the audiobooks if I can get my hands on them, because I really liked the audiobook narrator and enjoyed the story. I don't think I would have made it through the book if I hadn't listened to the audiobook, so I ended up giving it 3 stars. The next book that I read is Salt to the Sea by Ruta Sepetys, and this book is told through 4 different perspectives during World War II, but it doesn't really have anything to do with the war. There is one character who is a soldier, kind of, but the other people are I guess you would call him an artist, sort of, and then a nurse, and then a girl who is on the run from an abusive situation. And all 4 of the perspectives come together on the ship, the Wilhelm Gustloff, and it is a story that's similar to the Titanic, but more tragic, and not as many people know about it. And that's one of the things I really like about Ruta Sepetys' books, is that she takes highly known historical scenarios like World War II, but then tells lesser known stories from them, or like takes an element of that time frame and creates and crafts a story from a lesser known historical event. And I enjoyed this book. I enjoyed the different perspectives, and I really, really like learning about different sides and perspectives of history. My one hang up with this book is that I find the endings of Ruta Sepetys' books to be highly unbelievable. I feel that the ending of this book and the ending of Between Shades of Grey by her are very, very similar and really unbelievable to me. And I think it's because these are such like sad and drastic situations where not many people survived. And this may be a spoiler, but some of the characters do survive and kind of have this happy ending that just doesn't really seem logical. So that may just be me being a grump and being like, I don't know, not sadistic, but like, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. Like, not very optimistic about the outcome of things. I guess pessimistic. But, yeah, I still liked the book, but the ending kind of killed it for me. And there's this one character who is so awful, and he's supposed to be, like, written as awful and unlikable, but oh my gosh, it was horrible, and I like hated reading from his perspectives, and it was just bad. But anyways, I gave this book 3 stars as well. The next book I read this month, I started in October because I was trying to read spooky books, and then I had to read all these books for school and ended up having to put this book down, and so it took me a super long time to read this, but that is The Nightmare Dilemma by Mindee Arnett. It's the 2nd book in the Arkwell Academy series, and I really enjoy this series just for like the paranormal aspects of it. This series is about a girl named Dusty who is a nightmare. That is her magical ability. She goes into people's dreams, and she's supposed to cause nightmares for people, but she has this like partner, I guess. His name is Eli, and together they can like walk through dreams, and she's able to like see the future kind of in his dreams, and they have, in the first book there was a murder on campus at their school that they kind of got involved with solving, and in the 2nd book they've kind of started this investigative business, and they look into cases and things on campus. The stakes were a lot higher in the 2nd book, but I also felt that this one was more tropey. But I do have to say I really like the dynamics between Eli and Dusty. There's obviously like romantic tension between them, but because of certain circumstances they can't be together, and so it's like, I don't know, it's fun to like read about their sexual tension when you know that they can't be together, but they like obviously really want to be. And I didn't enjoy this one as much as the first one, but I'm really, really excited to finish out the series with the 3rd book, and I ended up giving this one 3 stars. The next book that I read is Anger is a Gift by Oshiro, and this book is about Moss, who goes to this school where students are being racially profiled, and the partnership with the local police at the school to kind of monitor and supervise the school is going downhill really fast because some different incidences keep happening where the police are abusing the students, and it's about these students, Moss and his friends and the community coming together to stand up against the police brutality and the awful situations that are occurring at the school and in their community. And Moss also deals with really severe anxiety, and he has panic attacks, and so trying to fight for what's right while also fighting and battling against his anxiety is really interesting to read and to hear his perspective. This book is extremely difficult to read. I cannot say that I enjoyed this book because it was really heavy, and I think the purpose of it is like, making a social statement and trying to encourage people to stand up for what they know is right. And even if it's like the government or, police is part of the government sort of, but standing up against those who are abusing their power and things like that. I ended up giving this book 4 stars because I recognize the merit and I recognize the importance of this book, and I think it's very powerful, and I think that it is a great book for like defying the odds and trying to get what is right, get justice and things like that. And so I would definitely recommend this for people who are interested in social justice and interested in situations that are socially they are prevalent in today's society. And just know that there are a lot of trigger warnings for police brutality, violence, racism, racial profiling, anxiety and panic attacks, probably some other things that I'm not remembering off the top of my head, but this is a very difficult book to read, but very important and very powerful. I don't know if I said, but I ended up giving it 4 stars. The next book that I read, and the last of the books I just read for fun, was Vicious by V.E. Schwab. And I don't know why I've been waiting so long to read this book, but I loved it. It was so good. I should probably say what it's about. Vicious is about these 2 boys named, well, I guess they're college students, Eli and Victor, and they're very intelligent, and they decide to do, Eli decides to do his thesis on EOs, or extraordinaries, and he and Victor together learn that extraordinaries are created essentially from near-death experiences, and in order to fully immerse themselves in the project, they both attempt to become extraordinaries. And the book is told in dual perspectives of their time in college when they're learning about extraordinaries and attempting to become them, and then 10 years later when Victor escapes from prison and Eli is changing his mind about how he feels about extraordinaries. And I love that these characters are morally gray, and I love the dynamics between the characters that are introduced other than Eli and Victor. And I'm very excited to read Vengeful and see how this duology wraps up. And I gave it 5 stars. I am so excited that I read it and that I enjoyed it so much. And I love that, they're older characters. Like, I don't know if this book is considered adult or not, but Victor and Eli start in college, and then it's 10 years later, so they're like 32 or something like that. But anyways, it was so good, and I am so excited to read the sequel. Another book that I had to read for school is a picture book called A Different Pond by Bao Phi. This book tells the story of a young boy who gets to wake up early in the morning and go fishing with his father in a pond, and they are immigrants from Vietnam, and the book kind of tells the struggle of immigration and trying to make ends meet in America, and trying to like share the stories of your heritage and your culture, and like keep your culture even though you're like living in America and stuff like that. And it was really cute, and the art style was beautiful, and the colors were really pretty in the illustrations. And I didn't rate it, obviously. I've said before, and I think I've said it earlier in this video, but I don't typically rate the books that I read for my classes unless I already wanted to read them. But yeah, it was a good look into immigration and trying to live in America when, you know, everybody has this idea of the American dream that's kind of BS and it doesn't really exist. And the final book that I read this month, well, read in November, is Amal, Unbound by Aisha Saeed. This book is about Amal, who lives in a small village in Pakistan, and she is dreaming of becoming a teacher, and she lives in this kind of large family, and the people in this village really prize male children to carry on the legacies that their families have created and continue the businesses. And when Amal's mother has another child, and it is a girl, she falls into a postpartum depression, and Amal, being the eldest daughter, has to take care of the baby and the other siblings while the father works and the mother is kind of recovering from her depression. And one day Amal goes to the market, and she is hit by the corrupt landlord's son in their village, and he decides that Amal has disrespected him, and it places Amal into indentured servitude to repay her debts to him. And Amal will do anything to be able to continue to pursue her dream and be able to be in school and continue working towards becoming a teacher. And so she kind of works with the other servants and works with some other people in the community to try to fight against the corrupt people that are wealthy and kind of run the lives of everyone in their village. And I think this was a really interesting look at indentured servitude, and like allows us to recognize that it's still a problem today and that it still occurs. And I think that Amal was a very strong character, even being, I think she's 12 years old. She's young, but she is strong-willed and very set in her ways. And so it was really good, and I think that middle grade audiences will really enjoy it. I just don't feel a huge connection to the book. It didn't really impact me very much, and so I just left it unrated because I read it for school, and it was just kind of okay, you know. Wasn't for my age group, but also I can understand why it's important, and it was really well written, so I can give it that as well. Well, that's all the books that I read in November. I am not doing super great at reading in December. I've read 2 things, and one of them I read most of it in November and just happened to finish it on the first day of December. But this is probably the last video that you're going to see of me filming in front of my bookshelves, unless I'm able to film some of my like end of the year, like best and worst videos before I move. But I am moving at the end of the month, and I'm not going to be able to take my big bookcase with me where I'm moving to, and it's just a temporary move, but I'm not sure what my videos and filming is going to be like for the next several months. But I don't know. I also have my short TBR bookshelf, and so I may film in front of that, but I'll talk more about that later if I need to, and you'll see when I post new videos what the situation is. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and I'm excited to film wrap-up type of things for the end of the year. I've read way more than I thought that I was going to this year, so I'm really excited to talk about my favorites and least favorites and disappointing books and, you know, the types of videos that happen at the end of the year. But until then, I will see you guys later. Bye!